Thanks for downloading the Racing Postcast. Listen online and on mobile.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special Six Nations Postcast in what should be a thrilling tournament. We've assembled a great lineup of oval ball judges to determine who's going to win and who's going to get the wooden spoon. Sat next to me we have Graham Woods, rugby union doyen of the Racing Post, and on the line we have Scott Burton giving us the French view and Paddy Power himself to tell us whether Irish eyes will be smiling at the end of this massive 6 weeks of rugby. Graham, I'm just going to start with you. This looks like it's going to be one of the most exciting Six Nations in a long time. Give us a flavour of what we can expect. It's going to be an absolute fantastic few weeks of rugby.
Yeah, I think we say it every year, this is the tightest yet, but I really do think it is this time. And you've got England obviously banging form, they're the favourites and the holders, and they've won 14 in a row. Ireland making huge strides, beat South Africa for the first time in South Africa last year, beat New Zealand, amazing victory over the All Blacks. Wales are still there. I mean, they've had a few little hiccups. Scotland are progressing. Italy have got a new coach. France, France are France. We'll find out what they do. It's really looking really tight, and I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it.
So let's go to you, Paddy. How exactly are you pricing up this conundrum?
Yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum, all right. Well, England are favourites, like Graham said. They're 5-6. Ireland 5-2. Wales 13-2. France 10. Scotland 25, and Italy 500-1. So.
Okay. Well, let's have a brief discussion of each team in their entirety. And let's start with Italy, who are perennial underdogs in this tournament. If they win a match, it's normally success for them. Can they expect anything better this season, Graham, or do you think it's going to be another hard season of toil for the Italians?
The trouble with the Italians, I think, is that they change tack all the time. And you've had coaches coming in saying, we want all the players to go abroad and really earn their place in a big team who are challenging in Europe. And then the next coach comes in and wants them all back in, playing in Italy. It'll be interesting to see what Conor O'Shea's approach is. It's his first Six Nations as Italy coach. He had great success with them, reasonable success. They had some wins in the summer. And, of course, they beat South Africa, which is a huge breakthrough for them. Obviously,
we should qualify that. That's the worst South African side to come over in many years, isn't it? They were very poor.
They were very poor. And the week after that, they lost at home to Tonga. So it's kind of, again, with Italy, one step forward, one step back. You never really know where they are. But Conor O'Shea's, an exciting coach, what he did with Quins in England. I'd like to see Italy sort of really contesting this time. They've got some interesting fixtures, starting with Wales at home on Saturday.
I was going to say, do you think that gives them the best chance of winning a game this season? Because if they lose that, then they've got some very hard games coming up. Like you said, they've got Ireland at home, and then after that they're followed by England. So they could be 0 from 3 if they don't get off to a good start this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Italy as a team tend to start quite well and really fall away. I've found with them that their last fixture in the last 3 years, they've been absolutely thrashed in the final round. That first match, especially at home, gives them their best chance. I can't see them beating Wales. But a big handicap, I could see them staying competitive in that one.
Paddy, I had a look at your prices, a brief look before you came on. I think Italy are 1-9 to finish bottom. Is that where you're expecting to finish?
Yeah, I mean, the Conor O'Shea factor is going to have some impact. Like he's a good tactician and everything, isn't he? But he could probably engineer one big performance for them. But Italy's biggest problem this year is that they're away to Scotland, I think. And I was just thinking, I wouldn't fancy to beat Wales either. And if they're going to win a match in a weird and wonderful way, I think their France game might be their best chance. But for that to happen, France have had to have a bit of a shocker, and the other way France can kind of lose interest a little bit if they haven't started well, and they're starting against England. So if that goes pear-shaped for them, it could kind of conspire in Italy's favour. But yeah, Italy are going to finish bottom.
Scott, what do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you think they're going to be 0 from 5, or do you see there's an opportunity there for them to win at least one match?
I'd be a little bit more optimistic. I think a lot of what you feel about what will happen with Italy depends on how you view Wales, who will obviously come to more broadly in a while. I actually think that opening weekend fixture, successive Italian coaches have always targeted their home matches, and specifically they start off at home against Wales, and then they have Ireland coming afterwards. They will look at that week one fixture, and Conor O'Shea will have had a lot of time to look at the video of Wales. I don't suppose he'll have been terrified by anything he saw from them in the autumn. They've also got his old colleague Brendan Venter in as a defensive coach as well, and I think, we'll talk about individual match bets a bit later on. I think there is a potential and it would count as a shock. I think there's a shock in the offing there. It might be as good as it gets for them, but I think they'll make it very, very hard for Wales at the weekend, and I think they'll certainly target that match as somewhere they can get off to a good start.
Right, so we're not predicting much joy for the Italians, but we'll move on to the Scots next. And Graham, for the first time in a while, there's some real enthusiasm behind the Scots' chances. They used to get to the try line and then freeze, and they used to struggle to get over. But they've got some real good backs now, including Stuart Hogg, of course. They're going to be competitive, and if they'd had an easier first match, you could have seen them going a long way into the tournament. But Ireland at home, that's going to be tough for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is going to be tough, but it's no gimme for Ireland, certainly. I mean, they might have thought that in the past. They've got a good record at Murrayfield. But you're right about them. Scotland's backs are really their key element, I think. They scored 11 tries in the Six Nations last year. That was the most they've ever scored in the tournament. And I was looking ahead at Saturday's game. They lost in Dublin last year against Ireland, scored 3 tries in that match. That's as many tries as they've scored against Ireland in the previous 6 meetings. I mean, that's how much of a big step they've taken forward. You've got to put a lot of that also down to their fly half, Finn Russell, who's a really exciting player to watch. He's got a lot of go forward. He attacks the line and creates a lot of opportunities. So he's going to be a key player for them. For them, also for Scotland, it depends a lot on their pack. They've got to have the power to win ball, to get those backs unleashed. So
what maybe could be the best angle with Scotland from a punting perspective then? We're not going to be tipping them to win the Six Nations. What could they realistically do? Is there a top try scorer for Scotland who you fancy or who could top the charts for them?
It's difficult with Scotland because they've got so many good backs. You mentioned Stuart Hogg, also Tim Visser, Sean Maitland, Tommy Seymour, all back 3 players, and this new lad Hugh Jones, who was a bit of a revelation last year. So they'll share the tries around, but I suppose we could look at overs on some of their matches, depending on the weather on the day. And also, I mean, something like 12 of their last 14 defeats in all competitions have been by less than 12 points. So they're competitive, they'll keep it close. That could be another way of getting behind them.
And Paddy, what's the view from Ireland? Obviously, you're full of excitement after beating the All Blacks last year. Is there a general sense that you expect to win this game at the weekend, or do you expect it to be just as tough?
Well, I'm absolutely disgusted that we're best price Ireland because we're obviously out to lay them because it must be some of the English lads working in the trading room, I think, must have priced this up. But I think there's a lot of optimism around. They're right, like reading the Sunday paper previews yesterday and everything. The other day was all about all the various experts giving their predictions and Ireland winning the Six Nations. But most people think it's not going to be a Grand Slam. Personally, look, I'm literally the most green tinted glasses merchant ever. I think we're going to win the Grand Slam, and it's going to come down to Ireland-England in the Aviva, the last match, the Saturday at Cheltenham. We'll be in a heap. You'll be going for the world record of wins, and we'll spoil the party and get the Grand Slam.
Yeah, I think we've got to pack all the wives off, haven't we, that week with Cheltenham, and then we've got to watch the Six Nations at the weekend. We've got to send them away on holiday for a few days. Scott, what do you think about the Scots? Do you agree with the guys that they are going forward, but do you still see them struggling in this tournament, or do you think they can beat Ireland and get some real momentum behind them?
No, I think they could. I wouldn't make them favourites to beat Ireland by any stretch of the imagination, but I think when you take Italy out of it, in most of these matches, home advantage is a big deal. I think you'd be looking at quite a high-scoring game, as Graham pointed out. They've scored 3 tries in last year in Dublin. It'd be a nice dry pitch on this hybrid pitch that they have up in Edinburgh now. And first weekend, you tend to get a few more gaps in the defences as well. So I can see it being a high-scoring game. I think that the fixtures set up really, really nicely for Scotland to end up with maybe 3 or possibly, if you're really optimistic, even 4 wins. If they can somehow squeak past Ireland on Saturday, and it certainly wouldn't count as a shock. They then go to Paris after that. Well, they've come close to beating France in Paris the last 3 times they've visited, or 2 out of the last 3 times they've visited. They then be home against Wales, who I've already said I'm quite down on again. They then go to Twickenham in round 4. Well, that's been historically a bridge too far for them, and then they have Italy at home at the end. I think 3 or 4 wins is not at all beyond them, and if you think these exciting backs that Graham was talking about, the outside backs, Hogg, Maitland, Seymour, Visser, even young Damien Hyland as well, who's really picked up this season for Edinburgh as well. There's tries in the team. They're 11-1 to win the tournament without England. If they end up beating Ireland at the weekend, that's not at all beyond them. the other way of looking at it is that Scotland-Ireland game, everybody assumes that it'll come down to Ireland-England in Dublin. Well, if Scotland are as progressive as we think they are, and England hit a bit of a rut in the road, maybe Scotland-Ireland is actually the Grand Slam decider, and not Ireland-England at the end of the month. But maybe that's being a little bit over-optimistic.
Scott, sticking with you, all the Six Nations and Five Nations tournaments of yesteryear, we always traditionally expect a strong French side, and going over there into the cauldron of Paris, being one of the toughest games on the calendar, and likewise a home match against the French. They've been missing for the last few years. Will they come back this year? Is there any kind of optimism on the ground over there that France under Guy Noves are finally going forward again?
Well, I don't think they'll have any difficulty selling out the matches. I think people are enjoying watching the way this French team plays. Noves, obviously, when he was coaching Toulouse, they were known as a very, very exciting team to watch. Fantastic flair backs, and not kind of the more stolid, stick it up your jumper kind of rugby, which we saw under Philippe Saint-André for 4 very, very turgid years. They lost to Australia and New Zealand in the autumn, but they lost with quite a lot of swagger and style, and they put on a good display, certainly against New Zealand. I think they've got more interesting and exciting players come through. I'm sure everybody in all their previews will talk about the Bordeaux scrum half, Baptiste Serin. It's a position, the two half-back positions, which no French coach has managed to really settle in about the last decade. And he may not even start against England. He may come on off the bench. They may go with Maxime Machinot. But he has not only a great rugby brain and a great set of hands, he's got ice running through his veins as well. He will come on in the last 20 minutes and he'll kick everything. I'm sure there will be lots and lots in the pre-match build-up of nice super slow-mo shots of him, the offload he gave for a try against New Zealand out the back of his hand. He's just a very, very exciting player. And he's the kind of player that Noves will want to bring along. As I say, he might not start him against England. It would be a big ask, but there's a lot of other talent coming through. Charles Olivon is a back row player I like. He's probably not going to be fit till the third round of matches, but alongside him, you've got the two wings, Nagatachi and Vakatawa, who have got tries in them. Another back row forward who's really kind of progressed and had a great game against New Zealand, La Rochelle's Kevin Gourdon. So there's a lot of good players in there, and they just seem to enjoy playing for Noves because he's letting them express themselves. So I doubt they've got 5 wins in them, but I think they'll wreck a couple of tournaments for somebody. And I honestly can't remember the last time a France team was 10-1 to win anything. So if they get off to a good start, if they somehow manage to beat England at Twickenham, then obviously it really does open up for them. But they'll be fun to watch, and I think they'll go well for away.
Graham, quite a lot of store is put on the way the fixtures fall in this tournament, and for the French, that seems to have been particularly unkind to them this year. In the first 3 games, they've got to go to England, and they've got to go to Ireland as well. Now, I think England and Ireland will view this as a game they should win at home to France these days. Would I be right to think that, or would they be right to think that, do you think?
Yeah, I think they will see it as a game they should win. I mean, it's interesting hearing Scott talking about France in the autumn, when they did sort of really express themselves the way Guy Noves likes them to. But in the Six Nations, you come up against coaches who play much more to a formula, much more to a strict game plan. And I think France's one weakness, if you like, in the Six Nations is they don't do that. They like to just play what they see. And I think they find it very hard. They scored less tries. I think they scored the fewest tries of any team last season in the Six Nations, even less than Italy. And they just do find it harder to break down defences that are so well formed. It's all very well when New Zealand and Australia come over in November, they like to throw the ball around, they like to play a similar kind of style. This is a very different challenge for them, and maybe I think Noves wasn't the right choice because he did all that with Toulouse 10, 15 years ago, but things have moved on a lot. So it will be tough for them. I think if they have one thing to look forward to on Saturday at Twickenham against England obviously got missing a few players in the pack. France will have a big, powerful, heavy pack. And if it's wet and England can't get some tempo into the game to move them around, France could look to grind them down, kick the penalties and win it that way.
Give us some key players for the French. Give us some names. Who could light up the tournament potentially?
Well, I think they're blessed with a big ball carrying number 8 and Louis Picamol. I think he's a dangerous man. The pack kind of speak for themselves. Whoever they pick will be big and strong. Scott mentioned the halfbacks, and he's spot on. They've never landed on the kind of formula of a pairing that will go through the season and really gel. I don't know who's going to play 9, if it will be Dusan or it will be Serin, like Scott said, but only he pronounced it much better than I did. They really need someone to make it work. But on the wings, Vakatawa is a really exciting player. You know, he's a France Sevens player. He is the one guy who will get some pace and some footwork and take on defences so long as he gets plenty of ball and gets the opportunity.
And Paddy, you were predicting an Irish Grand Slam, or at least them taking it to the final match against England earlier on. So you'll be thinking they'll beat the French too at home in the third round.
Yeah, we're at the moment we're 8 points favourites in that one, so that suggests it's a great record against France in the last couple of years, and I think it's probably a factor of France being a bit rubbish, really. Yeah, it's the cliche is true, isn't it? Like, it just depends.
You just never know.
The French teams in the European Cup have kind of got better recently. Like just in the last round of matches, they were better than they were early in the tournament for some reason. France always seemed fat and unfit or something. Do you know what I mean? For the last few years under Saint-André, I think that's because of the style of French club rugby. But I just think I agree that the defence are harder to break down. I agree that if it's Scotland, a Scotland-France game could be amazing. Do you know what I mean? It could be throwing the ball all over the shop, and that could be a brilliant game in Paris. But I just think France are going to struggle, and if they did happen to upset England, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world. But England are 12 points favourite. They should really be able to grind it out, against France, definitely.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the Welsh. Well, I think there could be a bit of a difference of opinion here. My view of the Welsh is they've kind of plateaued a little bit. They've got a lot of experience, but maybe they're just coming into the end of this cycle of current players. Graham, you see it differently. You think they might be a touch of value in this tournament. Is that right?
Well, I've said that I think they're a very big price. Now, a very big price could mean they're a touch of value. It could mean, they're correctly priced and they haven't got a chance. There's obviously reasons why they're such a big price. One of them is Warren Gatland, head coach, is away with the Lions, so Rob Howley comes in. He's a little bit uncertain of himself. Certainly the talk in Wales is that he can't decide what style to play. He wants to play a more open style away from the Gatland kind of approach, and that's made it difficult for the players. They don't really know what they're doing. A big factor for me is that there are no Welsh. Well, the Scarlets are playing in the European Champions Cup. The other clubs, Ospreys, Cardiff, and the Dragons are playing in the Challenge Cup. They haven't sort of had that. They're not really battled hardened the way that Munster, Leinster, the English clubs are from battling in Europe. So there's a lot against them. Traditionally, I think Wales tend to start hesitantly. They have to work their way into it, and as we said earlier, going to Italy, isn't probably the best fixture for them. But they've got England and Ireland at home. They've got good records against England. Anyway, they've got a good record at home. They're probably not the likeliest winners, no. But are they 8-1 shots, 13-2 with Paddy Power? I don't think they are. Okay,
and Scott, I think you've got a slightly different view from that. You've got a bit of a downer on the Welsh, haven't you? This year, you're not fancying them too much.
I think that's fair to say. Traditionally, they'll come into a Six Nations having had a disastrous autumn, and everybody writes them off, and then they'll pull out a big performance in week 1 or week 2. Might even wait till half time. I seem to remember they beat Ireland a couple of years ago, and they were dead and buried at half time and came back and beat them in Cardiff. On the face of it, the results were not terrible, but I saw quite a lot of them over the course of the autumn, and I have to say, I'm with you. I think this is a group of players that's collectively coming to the end of the road. They don't really have an enormous amount of strength in depth because this group has stuck together for such a long time. You've got a lot of players who are on 60, 70, 80 plus caps, and the regions, those four sort of clubs, if you like, super clubs down in Wales, don't get that really high level of competition all the time, and they struggle to retain the players there. And I just think they could be, they could easily have ended up losing to Japan and a couple of their other games in the autumn. For me, I think they're 4-1 about finishing in the bottom 2, and I think that that will feature again when you come to ask about my best bets of the tournament. I think, as I say, if you think that they might struggle against Italy, I don't think it gets any easier after that, and I see this being a tough campaign for them.
Do you think George North should still be playing? Or is he the player he was? He doesn't frighten defences anymore like he used to, does he? After those concussions?
No, he doesn't. I mean, on medical grounds, whether he should play, I don't know. I'm not qualified to say, but you're right. He's not the terrifying player he once was. He doesn't rip defensive apart. They've got a great young winger called Keelan Giles, who was supposed to come off the bench against Japan, and there was a lot of anger in Wales that he didn't, but I guess the game was under balance, which they weren't expecting. Yeah, Wales have still got some good attacking players. It's just a question of approach, really. They've got hopefully Toby Faletau back. Do they keep ramming it up in the middle with Faletau and Jamie Roberts? Do they try and put it wide? I'm not sure the players know. That's a real sticking point.
Paddy, how are you pricing up Wales for this championship? What do you think of them?
Yeah, so the best thing going for them, I think, is their draw. I mean, I think like away in Italy is obviously a bit of an skin, but it's the one team you want to be away to, I guess, isn't it? Like, I mean, Italy are the weakest team in the competition, so, and then they have us and they have England at home, so they do. If you remember the year, they won the Six Nations. It was a couple of years ago. We beat them in the first game, and then they came back and won the whole tournament. So, look, I don't think they're going to be winning it, to be honest, but I think they're tricky for us. I think they've got as good a draw as anyone has in this tournament. But like I'll be worried about that game going over there. Like they're only 5 points underdogs at home to England, and just looking at home to us, it's a 1 point game, and they're actually favourites. They're 1 point favourites at home to us at the moment. So that's a Friday night kickoff as well in Cardiff, which is basically a disaster for trying to get to. But I'll talk to the missus and see what I can do. But I think. I don't know. I'm hoping they're not good enough. I hope they're out of the tournament by then, but I think they're tricky.
What you say about the draw is interesting, because I think it was 2013 Wales won the Six Nations. And again, it was Rob Howley in the chair because it was a Lions year. And the first game, wasn't it, was against Ireland in Cardiff. And I thought, Wales aren't ready for this. They're going to, they're not together. They're not gelling as a team. And
we were like 20 points up at half time or something, weren't we? Yeah.
Absolutely. Overran them. And then Wales came back in the second half, couldn't win it. And the following week, they went over to France and played just a horrible game, just dug it out. And George North won it, I think, with 10 minutes to go when he tried. And that just turned it around for them, because the last match of that Six Nations, they blew England away. And
that's right. Yeah.
They just need to get over that kind of hurdle, and then they can really progress.
Paddy, back to you, because we're moving on to Ireland now. Just stepping back in time a moment. Did you witness the great victory in Chicago, or did you just catch up with the result afterwards? Were you present for the?
I was at a Breeders' Cup night in my friend's house, and I was all over the shop. But it was brilliant. God, it was amazing, just amazing. And I would have loved to have been there. I saw the narrow defeat a few years ago, and I saw that the defeat then subsequently at home, but didn't quite get to Chicago. But it was such a great performance. It was amazing, and it did kind of grip the nation. Which it's great that still happens. Do you know what I mean? That the nation can get carried away with something like that. And we were brilliant, and we nearly beat them the next time as well. I think there's a lot to be positive about. Like, the provinces are going well in Europe. We just have depth now. We never had depth before. Okay, Sexton's probably not going to finish any game, and hopefully he'll get through the tournament, but he's certainly injury prone. But now Paddy Jackson's okay. Like Sean O'Brien, if he's missing, you wouldn't even notice because the back row is so strong. Like, I think Conor Murray's the only player that we really could do it not getting injured. But before, like you saw in the World Cup with O'Connell and O'Driscoll and all these gone, it all just falls apart when you lose one or two big players. But now I think we've got that depth that we didn't have before. And we've also got Joe Schmidt, who's a bit of a genius. So hopefully we play nice rugby, though, because I like when we throw it around a bit. It's much better.
Well, he is a genius, Joe Schmidt, isn't he? Because, you lost some big operators in the last few years. You mentioned O'Driscoll, but Paul O'Connell was such a massive presence in the pack. He's a hard man to replace, but he hasn't just managed to replace him. He's managed to find a unit that are really, really effective. And the back row is a very destructive force. So, you take that and you take the New Zealand win last the back end of last year, and they've got to approach this tournament with huge confidence, you would think.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think they go in it. Like, he'll say, he's going to say publicly, he probably has already, but I'm sure he'll say, that the target is to be in the top two in the tournament. Like, and that's I guess what the betting would suggest as well. But if we can just get down to that one game, that one game in the Aviva against England, if we can get there, with the chance of either ruining England's Grand Slam or winning the Grand Slam or winning the tournament or whatever, deciding the tournament that night. It's just going to be mega. Like, it really will be. Just, I know the whole place will get carried away with it, and it'll just be amazing. Like, I just hope it gets that far.
And Graham, what do you think about the Irish? They're second favourites. Should they arguably be tighter in the betting to England than they are?
I think they should be tighter. England they're a bit too short for me, mainly because of the names that are missing. We mentioned all the good things Ireland got going for them. Great coach, good depth. And my one worry is Sexton at fly half. I noticed they've only named 2 fly halves in the squad. So we've got to hope he's fit. He was injured the other week for Leinster. I'm told he's going to start. There's a lot of power, a lot of pace in Ireland, and the players that have come through, the one that stands out for me is CJ Stander, the number 8, who's just an absolute dynamo and just bulldozes his way through defences. I like the way they play. I can't really pinpoint any weaknesses as such, but we just know that there are tough games out there.
And would it play on English minds as well? Do you think that they went over to the Aviva 2 years ago and they were pretty much blown away by a destructive Ireland side and never really got into the game, never even got a foothold in the game that day, did they?
They've had some big defeats there, yeah, it's true. The way England have tended to beat Ireland is just by overpowering them and by being tight and disciplined. So, they'll want a wet day in Dublin and they'll want to play that kind of game.
And Scott, what do you think about the Irish? Are they your ideas for the winner of this tournament?
I can make a case for all kinds of different scenarios. I think just purely on the basis of value, are we saying Ireland is something like 5-2 and England are a shade of odds on? I think if you think that they're the 2 best teams in the tournament and you know that Ireland are playing, if you were to price that match up after both sides have won 4 games, which we're getting a long way ahead of ourselves here, you wouldn't say that Ireland would be 5-2 to win that game. So I think on purely value grounds, they're a better bet for the title than England. The guys have said it all. They've got fantastically talented squad now. We're not just talking about a first 15, but right through the bench and those players who might come in as injuries crop up during the course of the tournament. I wouldn't be quite so worried about the fly half situation because Paddy Jackson is obviously a very, very able deputy and has proved so on a number of occasions. Obviously, the whole of Ireland keeps their fingers crossed that Sexton keeps himself in one piece and his head stays in one place. One player I'm looking forward to seeing who was really very progressive was Peter Armani, who then got injured. I think it was during the last Six Nations tournament and spent a long time out. I think if Stander's going to play at 8, he's an excellent player either to come off the bench or maybe to get a start later in the tournament as well. I think they're a very exciting side and. It's churlish maybe to say who's got the best coach in the tournament, but Joe Schmidt must be very, very close to the top of the list.
Okay. Well, there's only one team we haven't mentioned yet. That's England, so we're going to come to them now. Graham, obviously last year was just a fantastic one. Eddie Jones came in England and reigned unbeaten for the whole year. It's a very simple argument, but that's not going to carry on. They're going to be beaten at some stage. Will it happen in this tournament? And who do you think present the most dangers to England? But we've obviously got to go to Wales and Ireland. That's a tough gig, particularly with injuries.
Yeah, I can see them. I can see them winning one of them. Winning both of them will be difficult. We mentioned France at home on Saturday. With the players they've got missing, they're missing in the front row. Mako Vunipola, Joe Marler's supposedly fit, but he's broken his leg 3 weeks ago, so he won't be match ready. Dylan Hartley's only just back. Billy Vunipola's missing, Chris Robshaw's missing. There's a lot of weight from that pack. And also Vunipola and Robshaw are quite good at protecting what's possibly a vulnerable channel down the halfback channel. George Ford and Owen Farrell aren't the biggest and toughest defenders. So, there's ways for sides to overpower them, particularly, the early matches this season with those people missing.
And you did mention discipline earlier, and that's something that did, although England won all their games last season, did let them down a bit early on in games, and they often find themselves having to come from behind. And they gave away a few silly penalties at bad times last year, didn't they?
Yeah, discipline's something that they've worked on. And I know people always know Dylan Hartley as captain, but I think, when he's wearing an England shirt, he's very different from when he's a club player. He doesn't feel he has to do it all. He has better players around him who can share the sort of responsibility. So I think discipline will be an interesting one because we've got all kinds of new directives on high tackles. Maybe England aren't the ones who are going to sort of feel that the most. The other thing England have got going for them, though, is fitness. I think they're the fittest team out there. Eddie Jones really worked on that when he came in. I thought they were, a pretty fit side, but he said, no, I want an extra 10% off everyone. And it's really shown in some of the players. You see them playing in the Premiership, and they've really come on leaps and bounds under Jones. I think he's worked wonders with getting more out of players who are already playing at a high level. So, yeah, there's a lot. England have got a lot going for them, definitely. I wouldn't back any team at odds on to win the whole tournament in the Six Nations, just because not since sort of 2000, 2001 can you say one team has really stood head and shoulders above the rest. And even then England was even longer odds on to win it, and they fluffed it a few times. So I agree, with Scott, you wouldn't make Ireland against England in Dublin in the final round a 5-2 team against a 10-11 shot. So I wouldn't want to be backing them with those players missing and with that sort of weight over them of that record-winning run. As you say, it's got to go at some point. It's going to add pressure to them.
And Paddy, are you hoping that England and Ireland both make it through unscathed to that last match so it becomes a Grand Slam decider, or would you prefer, in a perfect world, England to have been beaten before they turn up at the Aviva?
No, I'm greedy. I want it to be that Grand Slam decider. I'm a total fairy tale merchant, and it's actually 6-1 that is the Grand Slam decider. So you can have a bet that the two of them get there to make that the Grand Slam decider. Two of them get there unbeaten. So that might be worth it, kind of a speculative, optimistic few quid. But I would love the occasion, and whatever way the result goes in the day, it's fine. It's a 2-point game at the moment. England are favourites, actually, 2-point favourites for that game. Obviously that'll all change depending how results go in the tournament itself. But I wonder, will the bonus point have an impact on the outright result? I know if you win the Grand Slam, it doesn't matter. But in theory, England are the most likely to rack up bonus points, aren't they? Because they're so fit and kind of overpower some of say Italy, for example. So if they could, in theory, come to Dublin with enough bonus points under their belt to almost finish. I know you did. Actually, does anybody know how it works? I presume if you win the Grand Slam, you can't lose a bonus point.
No, you get extra points if you do the Grand Slam, because there was that mathematical quirk. I mean, I found in the World Cup the bonus points, basically, it hasn't made a difference to the finishing order. It's just made the gaps between the best teams and the worst teams bigger. I mean, if you say England will get a bonus point against Italy, other teams will do the same, whether they'll take bonus points off each other. And the Six Nations games have always been tight, so the fact you get an extra point for finishing within 7 points.
Will it lead to some more expansive games? Do you think people are less inclined to go for late penalties and go for a try instead?
I mean, it's gut feeling, because we've got no evidence going. I really don't think so. Winning is everything. You've only got 5 matches, so it's not like a 22-match season where bonus points build up, and you're not playing for maybe top 4 to get in the playoffs. You're playing to come first, so you've got to win the game. And there are actually quite a few cases where teams are on 3 points. Have scored 3 tries and are in a position to go for the bonus point. That doesn't happen that often. 2's around the average number. And as you say, in the big one-sided games, they score 4 tries anyway. So I can't see it making a huge difference. But I'll probably be proved completely wrong. But at the moment, I can't see it.
And Paddy, just remind us of England's price for outright success.
Yeah, for outright, I think they're a touch of 5-6, isn't it? 1 sec. 5-6 England, yeah. So a touch of odds on.
5-6 Scott and England. Are you a taker?
No, I wouldn't be at that price. I'm sure they are the most likely winners, and they don't have a terrible schedule either. They just, as Graham said, this record will come to an end at some stage. They have those injury problems up front. France aren't without their own injury problems. They've had to make 4 or 5 changes since the team all assembled last Monday, so it's not been plain sailing for them. But there are enough kinks in the road to hope that, or to think that England might not make it through unscathed. The other thing I would say, you were talking about the bonus points there, and I'm with Paddy here. I love the sort of the romance of the Six Nations, if you like, and the thought that we could get in a situation where we get to the last weekend and it's all over, that a team has, if some of the sort of second and third tier teams manage to conspire to beat each other, that an England or an Ireland could have won 4 matches up to that point, and then if they've racked up a couple of extra bonus points, might actually be out of reach, and we get this fantastic Super Saturday with almost nothing to play for. That I would need to see a big bonus in terms of better matches through the first 4 rounds for that to be worthwhile. I have to say that rather fills me with dread. So not a huge fan of the bonus points, but we'll see. It's an experiment, and I'm happy to be proved wrong.
Right, we're now going to an advert. There'll be more Six Nations chat after the break.
Get instant access to your winnings with Cashcard Plus, Paddy's brand new card, available to use at ATMs, online or in shops. T&Cs apply. 18 plus. Gambleaware.co.uk.
Welcome back to the Six Nations Forum. We're just going to go through a few other options now. Key matches and thoughts on those. We talked about the last weekend, Graham, throwing up a potential classic in Ireland versus England, but the first round of fixtures this weekend has thrown up some really interesting matchups. And we've mentioned them briefly, but Scotland, Ireland, England, France, Italy, Wales. We think we know what's going to happen, but at least one of those games, something strange might happen and not what we thought.
Well, it's interesting because we think there's a big gap, don't we, between England, Ireland, Wales and the other 3 teams, and they're all playing each other. There isn't a match between the teams in the top 3 in the betting, so we think, oh, well, look, Ireland, England, Wales all get off to winning starts. And the more you look at them, the trickier they are. And it's hard to pick out one that stands out. Scotland, Ireland got a great record in Murrayfield, but as we say, Scotland are a team on the up. I think Ireland won 6 out of the 8 there. England against France again, I think 8 matches there. England have won 7 of them, including the last 5. So they'll be looking to extend that record. Wales, they have lost in Italy. It was a long time ago. I think it may be about 8-10 years ago. But we said they're a little, short of confidence. Italy will be at the height of their confidence, I would have thought, for the whole tournament. So what are we looking at? I think 3 very tight games. I'd be interested to look at the handicap start for France. I think that's, double figures, maybe it's 10 or 11 points, maybe more. I'd certainly be interested in looking at France, particularly if the weather's not good.
And Paddy, what about you? Leaving the England game aside, last up, where's the banana skins for Ireland earlier on?
Well, I think the first game up is a potential. It's a Saturday afternoon kickoff. It's like we're 7 points favourites. I mean, that's the most likely upset of the first weekend, anyway, according to the odds. But if we get off to a winning start, we're pretty good at the one-offs as well. So we should start the tournament quite well, because I think with Joe Schmidt, one of the things about it, he's such a nerd for detail that, to break into the squad, you have to basically get some sort of nuclear science degree to be able to learn his playbook and all that. So the players have spent a lot of time together. It's hard to get in and out of the squad, I think. Once you're in, you're in. So I think they will be quite together. But I think, obviously, I think Wales England's going to be brilliant. I think one of the games of the tournament is going to be Scotland Wales. Is that the second, third weekend, I think, because there's nothing between. It's like a toss of a coin, basically, according to the betting. I think that could be a really, really good game. And I think England-France to start off is just really intriguing, because we do expect England to be brilliant. We think, hopefully, Guy Neves will make a difference in France, and if they do throw it around a bit or whatever, that could be a really, really good game. But France have a bad record, don't they, in Twickenham? So, I don't know.
And Scott, what do you think? If there was an upset in the first round of fixtures, where would you think that would come from?
Well, I've already said I don't really think if Scotland were to beat Ireland at home, that would count as an upset. I suppose you have to say that Scotland's habit of narrow defeats over the last sort of 12, 18 months might count against them. I'd say 5-1 about Italy beating Wales. That doesn't sound like a big price, but I think that probably tells you all you need to know about the fragility of Welsh confidence. I think in week 1 that might be where the bet might lie, or even if you didn't fancy the outright, certainly looking at the handicap for Italy, because I think they will keep it close against Wales. I'm looking at the third round matches, not necessarily for a bet, but I think if you're working on the assumption that England are potentially or are very much the team to beat here, Graham pointed out in week 1 none of the top teams are playing each other, but in week 3 Scotland play Wales and Ireland play France, and by the end of that round of matches, a potential challenger to England needs to have emerged. One of those 3 teams needs to be unbeaten at that point if England aren't going to run away with it. And so I think that middle round of matches, they'll have all had a fortnight off to lick their collective wounds, and they've got another fortnight before the next round of matches. So I think that's really where you get into the guts of the tournament, and those 3 fixtures. The Sunday match between England and Italy will obviously be, for partisans of those 2 teams, will be exciting. But that Saturday afternoon going into Saturday evening. Scotland, Wales, Ireland, France. That's the guts of the tournament to me, and that's the one I'm looking forward to.
And Graham, a top try scorer is always a popular market in the Six Nations. We love to see running rugby. We love to see loads of tries. Give us some names of who you think could really explode in this tournament onto the scene, could advance their case for a Lions berth maybe, and who do you fancy to be top try scorer, if you have one yet?
Well, I've looked at one or two, and they're all quite high up in the market. But I mean, you can't get away from England. Jonathan Joseph was their top try scorer of the year. I think he scored 8 right through the year. And Johnny May is back. He missed a big chunk. And I think the one thing those two players have in common is the speed of their footwork. And that's what you need, I think, to unlock defences these days. You can't just crash through them anymore. They're so well organised. They scramble so well. And it's the other player who I liked a lot, the similar mould, is Wesley Fofana, the France centre, who's now injured. I suppose Vakatawa is another player who's got that kind of magic in his boots. If you're looking at teams, the two I like for Ireland are CJ Stander and Conor Murray, who are very good at sort of close range. Ireland tend to score a lot of tries through their forwards. I think 7 out of the tries they scored last season came 7 out of 15 from their forwards last season. Another 3 from Conor Murray at 9. So the ball's not getting out to their back so much. I think that they do a lot from close range. And the guy for Italy, maybe Italy top try scorer, Campagnaro, the centre, who's at Exeter, his game's come on there. And he's been in good form for Exeter at home and in Europe.
Paddy, popular market, give us the prices if you've got them for top try scorer.
Yeah, do indeed. And also just to note for the plug that we're going to quarter the first 5, which is helpful. Anyway, so Johnny May and George North are joint favourites at 8-1. You got 12-1 Jack Nowell and Jonathan Joseph, 16 each of Simon Zebo, Vrini Vakatawa, and then 25-1 Nakatachi, and then 33-1 and bigger the rest.
Anything you fancy from those names?
I thought is Jack now likely to get a start now because your man Watson's injured. I mean, if he does, he could get some of the easier in inverted comma games for England. Because I think you'd be looking at an England player for an overall top try scorer. I think England could be really flex their muscles against Italy, for example, and he could be one. He's 12-1 first 5 places. I mean, might be worth a go. But he obviously needs to get picked first. And then if I was going to be optimistic, I was thinking like Andrew Trimble will almost certainly start in the wing, 40-1 him. Like if Zebo's only 16s, how is Trimble 40s?
Graham, any news on Jack Nowell? Would he be starting? Is he a definite starter or probable?
Well, he's one of those, I think, who's really advanced his game under Jones, and particularly defensively. Watching him play for Exeter over the last year, he's really put in some great defensive performances, and that's what stands you out from the crowd in international rugby. So obviously Watson's injured. Eddie Jones has said he wants Anthony Watson in his squad, so he probably would have started. You're looking at maybe Noel and May on the wings, and Mike Brown at fly half. He's the only at fullback. He's the only out-and-out fullback they've picked. So I would go for those 3 as the starters. Yeah.
Scott, same question. Who are you looking forward to seeing in this tournament? And have you got anything, a speculator maybe, for leading try scorer?
Yeah, I thought it's interesting that Vakatawa is 16-1 and Nakatachi on the opposite wing for France is 25-1. I think Vakatawa is probably the one who's got that little bit of extra magic. The only thing, obviously, that might change Novis' mind as the tournament goes on is how good those 2 players are defensively. If teams decide to try and kick in behind them and turn them on their heels, if one or the other of them has a real shocker against England or Scotland first couple of games up, and it becomes difficult to maintain that sort of back 3, I think they'll probably pick Brice Dulin full back. I'm not quite sure, but for a top try scorer, I think Vakatawa at 16-1. As Paddy said, call to the odds. I think that's a decent bet. If England are going to score a lot of tries, then he maybe isn't at the centre of everything early on in the game. But Mike Brown has a happy knack of getting on the score sheet at some stage during the course of a game. And if England have this fitness edge, they may well rack up tries later on in matches, having been kept quite tight by teams for 60 minutes. So since he's likely to stay on for the whole 80 minutes, I suppose he's interesting at 40-1. And the Scottish backs are very, very, very fast. They will obviously be where their main try-scoring threat comes from Stuart Hogg. He's a marked man everywhere he goes, so you could argue Tommy Seymour at 33-1 is potentially a bit of value, but Vakatawa would be my choice.
Yeah, what price are you on Stuart Hogg, Paddy? Have you got a price on him?
33s for a tournament top try scorer. Yes, I mean he's the one, isn't he? I mean he's in the first game. You'd be nervous every time he gets the ball. You know, he's the one.
And do you think he's a marked man, Graham, or do you think he can still find those gaps?
Well, what Scotland have got going for them is that all back three players are so tricky. And Hogg is a marked man, but that creates space for the others. So I wouldn't necessarily go for a Scotland player to be top tournament try scorer, but if you're looking for the top Scottish try scorer, I'm guessing he's quite a short price, but they're scoring tries through their back three. So
let's come to the crunch. 2 names, winner and bottom. Who is it?
Well, I've said that Wales value. I'm the only one. I'm going to say Wales win it. Why not? And I'll go Italy bottom. Could be France.
Scott, same question. 1 and 6. Who is it?
At the prices, you have to say Ireland. I wouldn't put anybody off of Scotland in the without England market. They're 11-1. I could see a scenario they certainly came second. But no, Ireland to win it, and I think Italy will be bottom, but I don't think they'll be very far behind Wales.
And Paddy, I think I know where you're going with this one.
Yeah, amazingly, I'm going Ireland, and who cares? No, Italy bottom as well.
Okay. Final question to all of you. Any other specials, any other special bets that we haven't mentioned yet that you think or you fancy or you'll be putting up? Graham, let's start with you.
Well, the one interesting special, and I can't say I've got a fancy on it yet, is total cards, which have always been around the kind of mid-teens. And I've seen one lineup of 20 yellow cards in the tournament. Now, just this month, we've had new high tackle directives come in. We're expecting to see a flush of more yellow cards. The trouble is referees are so much in the spotlight now. You just don't know whether they're going to adhere to the letter of the law and really go for it and bring their cards out, or maybe just rein back a bit and say, no, let's let the game flow a bit more.
I hope Nigel Owens has got some games.
He's only got
Love
one.
watching him.
Yeah, he's a great referee. This is the thing, actually, he and Wayne Barnes are the most experienced referees. They're the ones who are more likely to bring a sort of measured approach.
He's just got one
to it.
match, Nigel.
He's only got the one, yeah.
How does he only have one match? Is he not like the best ref ever?
Well, I think so. I've always thought it's a bit crazy that they stick the referees as a touch judge for a couple of matches. I mean, that's where you want your up-and-coming refs, surely. They should be running the line, and the man in the middle should get more time there, but
there we go.
It's a bit crazy.
Scott, same question. Anything we haven't mentioned yet that you wanted to get on the show, a particular fancy of yours that we haven't talked about?
Well, I have sort of returned to this a bit like a dog with a bone, really, but I do think 4-1 for Wales to finish in bottom 2 would be my idea of a nap bet for the tournament, as it were. In terms of the way it's played, obviously we'd all like to see more running rugby and more tries. I don't think the bonus point system will do a lot for that. I could see Italy, even if they don't win a match, even if they don't beat Wales, I could see them staying within the handicap a couple of times. I think that they'll pick up defensive bonus points for being beaten by less than 7. So Italy not to go completely empty-handed would be my other way of looking at it.
And Paddy, we know we can put the mortgage on Ireland now, but any other speculators from your direction who the listeners could chew on for the tournament?
The 2 I like. Well, first of all, that's 6-1 for that last match to be a Grand Slam decider. I just for the fairy tale of it, and then the other one, I just on the cards as well. I totally agree with what Graham was saying. I think there will be a lot of cards, but I think it's 5-6 with us for a red card to be shown during the tournament, which sounds short. But this new thing, like they have to give a red for certain tackles now, and I just could see it happening. I really could. I'd see a red card early on in the tournament just to kind of lay down a marker. So I think 5-6 for a red card. Pretty negative bet to have, I guess, but I could see it happening.
Well, thank you very much to Paddy. Thank you to Scott. Thank you to Graham. Let's hope on Saturday, March the 18th, we are watching that Grand Slam decider. Enjoy the tournament, everyone, and we'll be back soon.
Thanks for downloading the Racing Postcast. Listen online and on mobile.